guys, welcome to Kindred Women. I have with me today Emma Wolfe, and we are going to get to know a little bit about her and maybe a little bit more about me.
Yeah.
So why don't you go and tell everyone who you are?
My name is Emma. I am in 9th grade and I am 15 years old.
Yes. Awesome. And you're doing field hockey, right?
Yes, it is
Yeah.
so much fun.
I know. I've actually, they didn't really have that so much when I was in high
I
school.
didn't even know what it was until
Yeah.
7th grade.
Well,
I
that's,
was like, oh.
yeah, and now you're having fun with it, so that's awesome. Okay, so, you know, as you guys know, when we bring a woman on, or a teenager,
Hey, woman.
that's right, we are basically aiming to help encourage other people, and so that's why she's on here today. And so we're really just going to talk about her life so far. You know, we both grew up in a Christian home or have grown up in a Christian home. And so kind of what we are going to talk about today a little bit is just how it is possible to lead a life following Jesus without straying and rebelling. You know, we're going to make mistakes. It happens. But, you know, we're not falling away from Jesus. So why don't you just tell them a little bit about kind of how it's been growing up in a Christian home?
Yeah, it's hard sometimes, but it's also like you learn so much and you meet so many people.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that makes it really, really easy. But I will say, like, especially coming here, I meet so many people that God's put in my life.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, and like going through tough seasons, it's like He really does take care of you. And some moments you're like, oh, and like you do question sometimes, just stuff. But
yeah,
then it just becomes more and more real. And there's more facts that show you this is a real thing than facts that show you it's not a real thing.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see.
That's good. So walking out a Christian, you know, life, walking with Jesus, like you said, isn't always easy. So where kind of have you seen this be true in your life? Like examples of more kind of specific things.
Probably seasons with friendships and stuff.
Okay,
And
yeah.
like, I haven't dated I've dated like one person, but it's like just finding value in what's really important and just seeing like actually like what I'm doing is important. It's still hard because I don't even know what my like real purpose is. And like trying to find myself, but there are definitely things that I'm like, okay, cool. Like I don't have to know this stuff.
Yes.
God's got me. You know?
Yeah, that's good. That's very insightful because it's true. He does know all of our plans, and if we just stick to what he's, you know, kind of telling us to do, then we'll get there. Even for me, I didn't know what I was doing until I was probably, I don't know, like 20 something, you know? So it takes time sometimes to figure that out. So you were talking about friendships. I know for me, that was one thing as I was growing up, just, you know, you find people and sometimes there's the drama that you don't want to get into and it just sometimes happens. I mean, I know I had that growing up where there were gossip things going on, and then you learn how to deal with that, how to kind of get away from that.
Yeah.
And so it really is something that you do have to kind of pick your friends and, you know. So where would you say most of your friends are kind of from?
Most of my friends are genuinely just dudes. Just
okay,
because
yeah,
I don't like we're talking about. I don't like drama. Drama's one of those things. I'm like, this is unnecessary.
Right.
Like, I'm here. I'm a shoulder crying. I'll talk to you. You can vent to me. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm totally judge free, you know. But also, it's like it's hard to find those friends too. Because I don't like telling people personal stuff.
Okay.
I like being in my little not a bubble of like exclusion, but like a bubble of just like here's me. You can talk to me, but I'm not going to tell you my stuff. Not because I have anything to hide, you know, just because it's more comfortable.
Right, and I think it takes time, you know, to kind of
build
really,
to
talk like that. So, okay, so peer pressure is another question that I've kind of thought about. Do you ever feel that? And if you do, like, how do you kind of not give into it?
Sometimes it does, but then there's like, sometimes I'm just like, well, most times, it's like, that's not going to benefit me. It's going to be something, it's like, yes, I want to have like experience in like safe ways as a teen, like just learn from that.
Right.
But if I know better, you know, just
that's very good.
I'll go check. But also, like, I'm gonna make mistakes, so I'm not saying that in the future I'm not gonna do anything dumb.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think that was very good. You know, is it going to benefit me? And I think that that's something that not everybody thinks of. You know, is this choice that I'm making going to benefit me right now? Is it going to benefit me in the future? as I was kind of sitting here before she came over, I was thinking just some of the stuff that even the mistakes that I made, and one of them being that I tried alcohol one time, and I was, I think, I don't know, 15 or 16, and people were there, and they asked me if I wanted it, and it was my choice. And I took a sip. I thought it was absolutely disgusting, and I still don't like beer. But with that, it was my choice, and whether it was a mistake, or not, to be considered it was a mistake, I also knew later, like even as I was sitting there, I wasn't going to let somebody tell me what I needed to do. Like
I get
keep
that
drinking it. Like you just, it's not going to benefit me. Exactly. So I love that you said that. That was good.
I don't like having people make choices for me, whether that's an adult or a friend.
Yeah.
And that's different from being like, here's $5, go pick me out some burgers.
Right.
But like, I think it is extremely important to be able to make my own choices and say what I'm going to do, because it's my life.
Right.
I'm not learning anything from someone choosing.
And
there's a song, it's actually, I think by like Lil Nas X or something.
Okay.
But he was saying, he's like, if I take you places, you'll never learn how to walk. If I talk for you, you'll never learn how to talk. And I was like, whoa. Like, it's not even, it's a secular song, but I'm like, maybe that's
it's very true.
Cool, right?
Yeah, and even as a parent, now that I have 2 kids, there's a book that I have, and it made me think of that, and it's called If I Could Keep You Little.
Yeah.
And it is that same concept. Like, if I could keep you little, then I could hold you forever, but I wouldn't be able to see what you could become. And that, I feel like, is something that my parents helped me to do too, is, there were mistakes that I made, or things that maybe they weren't mistakes, but they were just choices that I made that they weren't like super fond of, but they trusted me. And I think that that's an important thing, that you want to establish trust even with your children and with your parents. So leadership, let's talk a little bit about that. So, when I first met Emma, I really just felt like she was very similar to me as a teenager. And I just see a lot of the same kind of qualities, and even just some of just being mature and, able to really communicate well with people, whether it's younger people or older people, and even just public speaking. She spoke at church one time, and just being creative. So I think those are some of like really good leadership qualities. So how would you say that you would be able to encourage or influence some of your peers who are, walking on a path with Jesus, whether it's they're struggling or not? Like, how do you feel like, with your insight, that you can kind of influence them?
Well, I know with what I was saying earlier about how just like finding the things that are important and like how is this going to benefit me. It's like, if I'm going to waste my time on like drugs and alcohol and everything, and I know that's bad for me, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put my time to like talk to more people and meet more people, and like I'm not a hypocrite. I don't read my Bible as much as I should.
Yeah, I think.
But I know
I don't either.
And it's something that like I'll hear about it, and just being a staff kid in general, being pastor's kid, you hear most of the stories. You're like, I don't need that, because like and it's not that you're less Christian because of that. It's just that's not something that I do. It's probably would be good if I did. Yeah. But I think it's more important to go into the things that you know are gonna be like, if I talk to more people, if I put beneficial people in my life who are gonna talk to me and lead me, then it'll benefit a lot more, and that you'll learn and you'll grow, not only spiritually but like relationships wise and your community. And it's nice.
So what I hear is that you definitely think that there's value in picking and choosing friendships that are gonna
that'll come to like God will put people in your life. I wouldn't say most people that I like force a relationship.
Right.
With.
Yeah. So what about like Bible study? Would you encourage people to do that?
I personally don't, but I have heard a lot of other people, and like my mom was talking to me about it. She's like, "Hey, you want to do Bible study thing?" I'm like, "I can." But it's also hard, because if you're in a leadership position, it's hard to like put some of those things towards yourself. And I know leaders are readers, and like note takers are history makers, and like all these kinds of really great things that should be good. And I'm totally promote that those are all great things. But I like most of the stuff. It's just like, I know that, and you're more in a leading position, so you're gonna lead other people, and you'll grow from that as well. But I think Bible studies are good. But if you are a leader, I would say leading in that also will benefit you more.
Yeah, that's great. My youth pastor, when I was growing up, one of the things that he shared was rules without relationship lead to rebellion.
Yeah.
So, how do you think do you agree with that? How do you see that being true kind of in your life?
Roles without relationships.
Rules without relationship lead to rebellion.
I'm not sure.
Okay,
I think that's a really good thing, and it's something like you have to think about and process.
Yeah.
Because different people interpret things differently. But yeah, I think roles are really important. It's good to have people who are leading you, and to have those relationships are really, really good. Because without that, you're like, what's the point? And then, like, if you were to have a boyfriend, you're like, if he's here for me for all the wrong reasons, like he's not here to comfort me, he's not here to talk to me, he's not here to love me as a person, then what's the? It's not any good. Benefits.
Yeah.
It's gonna lead to negative things.
Right, and I think the way I saw it was, okay, so if I have a bunch of rules, you can't do this, or you can't do that, or you have to do this, but then we don't have a good relationship. Now I'm just like this dictator telling you everything that you can't do. Right. Yep. And then that's going to lead you to doing something possibly destructive. Like one of the things that when I was growing up, what my parents would do with discipline or even rules is they would sit me down at the table, and it was like this, conversation, and it sometimes was awkward, and almost that made me not want to get in trouble, because knowing that I would have to sit down and have this like awkward conversation. But they would sit down and they would give reasons behind the rules. So do you feel like your parents kind of do that too?
They do, and I appreciate that a lot, because I have some friends that like they'll be told, and it can be annoying. Be like, hey, can I go to Busch Gardens or somewhere this weekend? And your parents be like, no. And then you ask why, and then they give you a reason. You're like, okay, that makes sense. At least I can like get on their level about it and have that perspective.
Yeah.
But if you're told no, and they're like, because I said so. I went on a youth trip one time, and I asked if I could do something, and her answer was, because I said so. She said no, I couldn't. And I was like,
yeah,
okay,
right.
And I was really upset. I was like, if you just give me reasons, so I'm not like upset about it, or like less upset, just so I understand a little better. So I want to know. But I think it's really nice to have my parents talk to me about some stuff. And I'm not all about the lectures,
right?
But at least having their perspective on it, and me knowing where they stand and they know where I stand, is nice, because then it's not a conversation you'll have to have later. And if it is, and you already have the understanding, be like, what do we need to do to change this problem?
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, I know there were several times where they would just sit down. Even one of the things that we often ran into was wanting to spend the night at people's homes. And, our parents were cautious. You want to make sure that they're going into an environment that they can be trusted. And so one of the things that I know they would say is, you can't spend the night at that person's house. And I remember asking why. And same thing, I do appreciate they didn't say just because I said so. I mean, I think sometimes that answer is okay, that is because I said so. Like, there are times where I say that even with my young kids. But typically, I try to give them a reason because, yes, you want to let them understand it for themselves so that they then can make that decision later on based on the reason, almost, instead of just this rule that's been put into place. And so my parents would say things like, well, you can't spend the night there because I don't quite know their parents well enough. I want to get to know them better, something like that. And I felt like that really helped me. One thing that I kind of wanted to bring up was just, teenagers can be difficult. Like, do you feel like
we're
that?
so special. We're just so special sometimes. Like, all levels, like a little slow, and then we're like a little too much.
Right? Girl, you just like spoke right to what I was about to say. Yes. And I feel like when I was a teenager, there are hormones.
Oh my
okay?
gosh,
I mean, let's just talk about that. Like, I don't know what the guys go through, because we're not guys, but I can imagine.
Different.
Right, it's a whole different hormonal thing.
Ball field, different whole like softballs over here, and we got like soccer ball over there. It's totally different.
It is totally different. But one thing I think that, and I'm not saying that not all parents do this, but I think parents, I'm kind of talking to you right now, like, you have to acknowledge that the teenage years are difficult. I think one thing that my parents really did well with was if I was like crying over a boy or something, they would sometimes just hug me, you know, or just acknowledge like this really stinks, and they were there. I can tell you, I think this was more hormonal, but then maybe even a reaction. But I would get like acne on my face, like
I feel that.
covered, but like I'm talking like I think it was a reaction to SPF. So I have to be really careful with that even now. But I mean, I'm talking it would be awful, and so I mean, it would be my whole face, and then it would take like a week or so for it to go down, and it would be red and inflamed, and it would itch, and it would just hurt. And it only happened like a couple of times, so I really think that it was a reaction now. But I remember my dad one time was like, "What's all over your face?" And I was like, and I just started crying. But he turned it around and he gave me a hug, and he told me that it would be okay. And I felt that, you know, like it is something that I needed to hear. I needed to have that comfort. Like, it is going to be okay. It stinks right now, but it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And so do you feel like your parents kind of do some of that with you?
Yeah, it's nice. And it's also hard sometimes because, like, as a teenager, you do have so many hormones.
Yes.
So it does go sometimes into the fact of, like, yes, you want a hug.
Yes.
But, like, you want to embrace the hug sometimes. You're like, I just need a hug. Because I can't tell you how many days I'm just like randomly, I'm like, I just want to jump on someone's back and I want to piggyback right. Like, I know it's super random, but you just have, like, these different spurts and things. Where, like, you just want to hug somebody and you just, like, you don't care.
Right.
But sometimes it is hard, like, having parents. Especially, I know, like, I love my dad so much. But there's sometimes that he wants to hug me and I'm like, I just don't want to hug you right now.
Yeah.
And it's like trying to like balance that out. And as long as they know like I still love you, but I'm like, I'm all in this right now. I promise you in like 2 years I'll be
right.
But like don't take anything personal.
Yes. I mean seriously, like I remember my mom one time, we were at our church and there was something going on. There was a boy that I was kind of interested in. He was older than me. And so they weren't completely against it, but they were, you know, a little bit iffy about it. And I remember my mom almost coming to tears and she said, you know, I don't feel like I can come to you and talk to you about these things right now because I'm afraid that you're going to like blow up. Yeah. And it was true though.
Yeah, recently actually,
yes. But once she said it, it kind of cleared the air. You know, even though it was awkward, like it just cleared the air. And sometimes I think parents don't want to have those awkward conversations. I mean, we don't want to as teenagers, but it sometimes needs to be done. And another thing too is just giving of your time. You know, do you feel like your parents are really intentional about giving time to you?
And it's hard sometimes now with sports and everything. And I'm doing ROTC this year. And like I know a little about it and I'm like, oh cool new stuff.
Right.
But it is hard because sometimes you're just both really busy.
Yeah.
And then it's really hard because you're like, oh, I was invited to so and so's house tonight. Oh, well, you haven't spent time with your family all week, so it's a no. And then, like, I go home upset because I can't hang out with my friends. But then also there's sometimes that I've been out all week, and then, like, there's that one conversation, like, mom's on the phone, like, well, wait, how have you been? Like, I haven't seen you. And then there's, like, those visiting times. And I know some teens, like, just don't like their parents at all. And I'm not saying I haven't had those moments.
Right, I think we all have. Yeah.
You always are like, you know, just totally over it. But it is nice to have those conversations sometimes. Yeah. Because most parents are like, I'm in your corner all the time. It doesn't feel like that a lot, but they are. They're just like, in the end, they're like, I'm here for you. Like, I was put in your life. I love you. And that's all you need to hear. And you're just like, that's good.
That's good. So another thing that I wanted to talk about, there's a book that I've started reading. It's called Why I Didn't Rebel. And I haven't quite finished the entire thing yet. This is probably more for parents. But I think when she wrote this book, she was 22. So it's you could probably actually read it too. It's very insightful as far as things that parents can say and things that parents can do. But then it's also from a teenager's perspective. So it's really, so far it's been really, really good. I can't say that like I'm absolutely in love with it because I haven't finished it yet. But there is one spot, and I was a psychology major in college, and so one of the things that she talks about is the parenting styles. And one of the parenting styles is called authoritative. And basically what it means is the parents are high on warmth and love, but then high on control and like rules. So because they're both high, they balance each other out. So you don't have a bunch of rules, and then you're just like mean, and then now I'm gonna go rebel, and then
you have that negative context.
Right.
Teens just hide stuff.
Yes. Yep. And so this is where there's a loving environment, and there's also rules put in place, but then there's reasons behind those rules. So parents, if you can look up authoritative parenting and kind of figure that out, because I truly believe that is one of the reasons why children feel comfortable with their parents. I mean, of course, it's not going to be all the time, not saying that. But, I mean, we just talked about teenage years. So, but just knowing that if we put rules in place and then we follow through with them, because if my parents were to tell me something, but then they just changed their mind left and right, I would basically just do it whatever I wanted to, And so rules have to mean something, and you have to give reasons behind those. So I know we've kind of talked about that a little bit, but I do want to, put that in for the parents there. And if that book, something that you would be interested in, or someone else, it's called Why I Didn't Rebel. So we've kind of talked a little bit about boundaries, rules. What kinds of boundaries or rules have your parents put into place?
They put in, like, a lot of shows there's boundaries around, and there's a lot of music and stuff like that. And sometimes who I hang out with, like, I can go to friends' houses unless they've met them, and most times it's church friends, because they're more of, like, my parents know their parents, and they're more stable, and, like, the parenting is similar.
Yeah.
But I also, like, there are times that I really disagree with, like, with music and some movies, because I think it all depends on intentions. So, like, I know parenting style is different, like the authoritative parenting and everything, but if your kid does, like, I like all music.
I do too.
I'm not super like, oh, I love rock, or like, I despise rap, because I don't. I'm down for any music. It's more like the meaning behind it. But some songs do have cuss words, and some songs have certain parts that just parents are like, Like, there's one song, I think it was 1950, and it said one bad word.
Okay.
But the whole rest of the song was like, it was like a love song kind of thing.
Doesn't it make you mad though when it does that?
Sometimes, yeah.
Because you're like, come on now. If you could
they tend to rhyme.
Right?
Tend to rhyme. So it's just, I'm like, I get it. You probably just didn't type it. You're like, oh, well.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just, I disagree there. And some movies also tout it. Like, a movie could have like a few bad scenes.
Right.
You could skip those scenes and it's still good.
Yeah.
But I don't think, and it's kind of like a family, Like, if you have a family and you have, like, the majority of the family is really good, and you have that one awful uncle that nobody likes. That uncle doesn't ruin the whole family.
Right.
He's just that one person.
That is a very good insight.
That's my perspective on it. But, like, with parenting, if you know your kid's intentions, then I feel like it's okay to, like, lean against rules sometimes. Like, my parents know I'm not going to go off and watch some super inappropriate art movie. But most movies, they ask me to talk about it. Or, like, it has some one scene. I'm like, yeah, I'm also 15, and, like, that's nothing new.
Right.
So usually it's just conversations and putting up barriers as we go, because I'm the oldest and the only child of 5. So, we'll figure it out as we go, and it's all conversations. So.
Yep, and I love that you say that, because that is exactly what my parents did. Music, we're like twins, okay? But seriously, music, I love every style of music too. And I was the same way growing up. Like, my parents, when I was growing up, like, even elementary, like around middle school was when I started even knowing that there was other music out there other than Christian music.
6th, 7th.
And so I started wanting to listen to some of the secular music too, and there were the same type of rules, and I definitely didn't agree with them at the time. And now I can see some things, like some songs are definitely, inappropriate. And then, like you said, there's others where, okay, what is my intention? And you know what? That is what I would say good parenting is you talk about, if you have a rule, like my parents actually, they had a rule, and it was pretty like set in stone that I was not to date until I was 16 years old. And that was like the one rule out of like anything else. I feel like by the time I was 13, we really didn't have that many rules, because we had to establish that trust, but that was one rule. And it helped me sometimes, because there would be boys that wanted to date me, and I was like, sorry, I can't date until I'm 16. My parents said no. But then there was one time, and I actually started dating this guy when I was 15. And my parents didn't, like, there was, very restrictive time that we could spend together and stuff. But it wasn't, no, you can't because you're not 16, you know? And I really feel like that was a level of respect that they really showed me, that they trusted what I was going to do. And I mean, to a level of degree, you know, like you can trust your child, but you don't know what the other person is capable of or wants to, you know, intentions and things like that. But it definitely is, I love that you said that, all about the discussion, because truly, yeah, I mean, there's movies or things that you are interested in and they may not be interested in it and can't quite see the why behind why you would want to. But then when you are able to talk about it, sometimes that barrier is lifted, that boundary is kind of taken a little bit to a different level. And that's okay, you know, because boundaries change. Like, that's the thing, boundaries don't always stay the same, you know, like,
you're
I think
constantly changing your mind, so it's like they can, and if they do, I don't know if that's the healthiest way to go.
Right. I mean, if you think about a fence, like, if you have a little puppy, the puppy isn't requiring a lot of room to run around, but then they get a bigger fence as it grows, and that's kind of what it is for for kids and teenagers, I think, anyway. How do you feel like your parents have kind of helped develop your walk with Jesus?
So it's always been like, yes, you have to go to church. There's never any questions asked. But also, like, there's only been a few times I'm like, I really just don't want to go to church today. And it wasn't even because, like, I didn't want to, like, be around Jesus. It was more like friends, or, like, there's a certain person I don't want to see.
Yeah.
You know? But it's more like, yeah, how are you praying? Are you reading your Bible kind of stuff? But as long as they feel like I can talk to them about that kind of stuff. And, like, we can have, like, as long as they have evidence and see that my heart's still there, and, you know, I still believe in God and everything, then they're more comfortable with that. Like, we'll have conversations sometimes, and we'll just be talking, and then I'll be like, yeah, I thought it was really cool how so-and-so, and, like, how God works that way, and they're like, she's okay.
Right, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was something that I had thought of the other day was, sometimes when you do put going back to kind of the rules thing, like, and I don't know if your family does this or not, but my family did not when I was growing up, having, like, every morning devotion time and every night prayer time, and it being this, like, you turn Christianity and a relationship with Jesus into the rules.
I disagree with that actually a lot, and I know
so do I.
some people are like, oh, and, like, they try to force it so much, but, like, most teens, when they turn 20, they leave the church. Because they were forced, and they had to go to service, and they had to do all this stuff, and there wasn't that choice behind it. And I think choice is so important.
Yes, me too.
Being able to choose what you're going to do with your own time, who you're going to hang out with, and again, like, as long as you have the reasoning behind it, and it's okay, then it's fine. Because you're always going to have people who are trying to lean you one way and influence you negatively and positively. But, you know, it's just, that's one of those things that you play out too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just, it's always learning. Always learning as you go.
Yeah. So, what are the biggest choices that have helped you continue to follow the path that you're on?
Probably back to influences.
People that's what I was thinking too.
Just be like, because my parents have always been there, but I've also had, like, boys, just, like, guy friends in general, who are, like, they genuinely like stuff, and, like, I have some friends, like, I have a hard time navigating girlfriends because I've had a few friends that have been, like, stable for the most part. And then as I get to know them, and things kind of get complicated with, like, other friends with friends. Like, I have a friend group right now, and one of my friends is dating my brother. Okay. And that's really hard sometimes. Because it's just like, what am I here for? Like,
right.
Are you here to hang out with me? Not that I question her. Like, I don't feel like she wants to hang out with me. Just, like, I feel like I'm third wheel this whole time. And that's not exactly what I want to do, you know? But it's all just kind of, most people influence me just by who I hang out with, and I have some guys who, like, I love sport. That's something I love, and I like being athletic, and I like competing, and just all those kind of things. Like, if all else fails, it's fine. We can play catch, you know, like just something active. But it's like I find interest in those things based on who I hang out with. Like influences with, like, if we go back to, like, drugs and alcohol. If you hang out with people who do that all the time, they're gonna make those things look cool, and if you hang out with them, you won't realize it's a bad thing until you have other people in your life who are like, oh.
I think that's a great answer, because really a lot of the questions that I have asked kind of do stem around who you're spending your time with, you know, and it is so important. And I mean, I had friendships when I was in high school that it was sad. You know, it was sad to watch, you know, the drinking and things like that. And it just became very difficult to want to spend my time because I didn't want to do those things, you know, and it was hard to watch, you know, and I think that I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but that is a potential that, you know, that you may end up facing, that there are those difficulties that just come with keeping a path following Christ. You know, some of those friends, they're going to stay back there and you're going to keep moving forward and it's going to stink and you're going to want to tell them to not do it. And like, we made our own choices, they're going to make their choices too. So
you go through like hard seasons and stuff too, just with everything. Like, you could have one week that you were just having an awesome week, and you're like, I feel on top of the world kind of thing. And then you have another week where you're just like, I'm totally down in the dumps. I'm in a valley right now, and you know you're in a bad season. And sometimes that does happen from being surrounded, by negative things. But you find yourself in that hole, and you're like, God's got something better for me. I'm gonna pick myself up and I'm gonna keep going, even though that's not at all what you want to feel like. That's not what you feel like you want. But there's different ways to go too. You can pick yourself up and fix your life order, and which seems to be easier. Like I've been something, God put this on my heart a while ago. Now it's something I just kind of like brought out. But getting uncomfortable and being comfortable, because we are somewhere. This generation, my generation, is so caught up in being comfortable. Like we don't work out as much, we are not as active, and there's so many negative things that happen. There's a lot of great things too. But it's something that I highly push. Like, we should not be comfortable all the time.
That's very good.
You should not always feel like to have a conversation with someone you need to be comfortable, because there's not always comfortable conversations. You're gonna have some awkward ones, like breakups, asking someone out. Those are not comfortable conversations. But how else would you like be married?
Get there, absolutely.
Build so much into your life.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, I love that you're saying that. You know, in order to, what did you say? In order to
be comfortable, you need to get uncomfortable.
Yes, that's good. That's good. Listen up, y'all. Okay, so we've got just a couple questions left. Okay, so what's a common misconception that people kind of put on children who their parents are pastors?
I think it's mostly how a lot of people, and this is how I'm a pastor's kid, so this is me looking in on it, and this might be me.
Right, like,
trying to label other people, which I don't intend to.
Yes,
you know, we all do it anyway. But we, like, I feel like a lot of people think we're perfect kids, and like we have everything figured out, and we are all like loving Jesus, and we're all living a life for Jesus. But I know a lot of pastors' kids and a lot of people who are just pastors' kids and people who have been influenced by church a lot, who go totally turn their whole life south because they're like, oh, I don't have to do this anymore. Like, I don't have all these people looking at me. Because a lot of things we do is driven for performance, and because we always have people watching us. Like, I have a really hard time, because at my school, where it's local to my church, so I have a lot of friends at school and a lot of friends at church, and I don't want to do something dumb at school. And be like,
I saw you doing that.
And and then there was a lady who went to her church, or she still goes, and then she worked at my school. And she helped out a special needs girl. And she's really sweet. She's an awesome lady. And she introduced me to her daughter and stuff. And I was like, I can't do anything dumb in this class. And and anything I do, like, reflects upon my parents, and reflects on God and the church and everything, and people I'm close with. And of course, I don't want to do that. So, like, it's just hard walking around, because a lot of people think you are perfect, and you kind of are forced to live that perfect lifestyle anywhere in public. So at home, like, I'll be texting friends and be like, what the heck? Just like so many stupid things. Like, I love being super silly, dumb sometimes, and just totally laughing and doing all those things. I think that's something everybody should do.
Yeah, me too.
But it is hard, because that's like something you have to build up trust with. Like, are you someone who I can actually trust, who's gonna like allow me to do this? Or are you gonna like go up and tell people and talk trash about me? Because I don't talk trash about anybody unless it's something like really serious, more or less. Like, hey, this person really did like hurt my feelings. I'm more venting to you. But like, I just feel like it's an important thing not to talk about people.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I can tell you, even going back to when we were talking about friendships and stuff, and girls, like I too was friends with a lot of boys, and I didn't date them. Like, we literally were just friends.
Your homies, your bros.
but that was the same thing for me. It was, I couldn't figure out how to have a relationship with girls where one wasn't talking about me and the other talking about her, and then we were all talking about
It
each
is hard sometimes because I don't like being in drama.
Right.
I don't want to have one girl who's like, I hate you, and then one girl who's like, she really hurt my feelings.
Yes,
like,
it's
all
hard.
these emotions
Right. And it just,
backfires.
and then it just turns into, just gossip, no.
Yeah.
Okay, you just don't
and
do
it.
it.
is a stereotypical woman thing.
It
that I
sure
think most
is,
women
yeah.
do, even unintentionally.
And honestly, as I've gotten older, because I would sometimes gossip, and I felt like, why am I doing this? But then I found, and this is where I think this is where the stereotype comes in, is that women want to have something to talk about with each other. Yes,
Same,
girl.
Oh my gosh. Same way.
And
same
so
way,
you want to talk to them about something, and so then you start talking to them about other people, and then it just becomes, now we're sitting here having this gossip fest. It's not okay, So
it's not healthy when you put Jesus in the middle of this. We're in a small group. It's a Bible study, and you have all these women, and they're all talking about Jesus, and they're just telling these stories about this one mom who's not here. I think as Christian women, as a community, as people who all love each other, that is something that we should break the stereotype.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it is hard to find other things to talk to. We've overcome so many other things that should not be something that we are still stuck in. Like, we've talked about the weather.
Right, come on.
There's
there is. So real quick, going back to just, being a pastor's daughter, we have talked about that before, which is the perfection. I mean, first off, I think people just need to wipe that away completely, whether you're a pastor's child or not, because no one is perfect, And I think the word that really stands out to me is grace, because as a pastor's daughter, as a daughter of someone who's an engineer or a doctor or a librarian, you're going to make a mistake, and we have to then, as the church and as friends or family, give grace to those people. We can't, there's no way for me to be able to, I don't know. I think a lot of people put the pastors on this pedestal, unfortunately, that yes, everything is perfect. And that's one thing that I love about our church, community church, that the pastors, sometimes they talk about the real things that are going on in their life, and then now
So that's why staffs at church are usually if you've won the staff at church usually all we went to this it was a conference. It was an awesome
okay,
conference.
What was it called?
Access Nation.
Okay.
It was really cool. It was up in Memphis.
Yeah.
It was really interesting because we see all we have this whole 4 brothers, three or 4 brothers, and then there's the pastor. And there's all these girls and staff who are some are worship leaders, some are kids, and they're working at different campuses. All of them were so close, and they all just family and everything. And they all were engaged and married and everything.
Yeah,
I was that is awesome.
That is awesome.
So I'm kind of hoping some
maybe
guys in church, especially the cute ones, get close with them.
That's right. That's right.
But that's different. Anyway.
So, what is kind of one thing that you would want adults or parents to know about teenagers, some insight that maybe could help them to maybe change some of their thinking?
We have no idea what's going on in their heads half the time. We just don't know. So I've had so many stories where it's teachers especially, because there are some teachers who are amazing.
Yeah.
I've heard stories of kids who they're going through stuff and they're my parents love me and everything, but sometimes you just need something more than just parents.
Yeah.
And a lot of parents don't always show their affection. I do think that it's important. It does depend on your relationship with your kid, though, because every person's different and every parenting style is different, But it is extremely important to talk to your kids about those stuff, but then just kind of just get on their level. Remember how it was as a teen.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's so easy to get mad at your kids sometimes. But to be I think they did this because, and believing the best in your teen, and not always going I've had situations where I was in trouble, or I'm in my best life, I'm having a great day, and then something happens, or somebody does something and it wasn't me, and I'm I don't know, I think it was you, thinking the worst, and I'm I said it wasn't. Why would I do that? Because then that
breeds.
It makes the moment really bad, and then it paints a bad picture and breeds,
dishonesty, in you. If they don't believe you when you are being honest, then it breeds dishonesty later on, so that, well, they don't believe me anyway, so I can go do it and then just lie about it anyway.
Exactly.
You know,
and not having that relationship with your parents sometimes, even though it's not always fun.
Right.
And parents not trusting their kids sometimes, is you can put on as many monitors and baby things as you want. If your kid still wants to do it, and if you still don't have the trust in them, they're gonna find ways around it. Like I know about a lot of parents who just like wrap their kids in a bubble sometimes, and that all is different parenting.
Right.
But if you do that to your kid and like you don't allow them to go out places and they always feel like they're restricted to home, they're gonna find ways around that, and they're gonna be hiding stuff from you, and you're gonna find that relationship is going south, and you can get extremely manipulative sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
And you're just in a really unhealthy situation.
Yeah, that's very good.
It's crazy. Like just get on their level, but also like don't be afraid to have those trust conversations and be like, I know we're not as close, and I know you probably don't want to have this conversation, but I just need you to know, like, I love you, and if there's something going on, just, like, I'm here for you, but I don't want to baby you and feel like you are going to grow up, and I want you to feel like you're living in a real world. Because we're going to grow up eventually. Like, the whole point of parenting is to get your kids ready for the real world.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm glad my parents don't put me in a little bubble. Because sometimes it does feel like they do.
Yeah.
But then, as long as you feel like you still have that, like, okay, I still know, and I understand.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. So lastly, what would you say kind of encouraging to another teenager that is trying to continue their walk with Jesus?
I think it's don't settle at all. Because different things are going to get thrown your way, and like the devil's always like, heck no. I see things like God has a huge plan for you. I'm going to shut that down. But don't worry about the stuff you've done before that are negative things. Because you focus on the negative, then it's so much harder to get up the steps. You know, you're just falling down and turning to a slide every single time.
Yeah, that's
but when you really do put what's really important in front of you and what's going to benefit you more, then it does become easier. Nothing's going to be super easy.
Right.
Everything's always going to be difficult. But it definitely just put what's most important in front of you. You will. It'll help. And again, I know we all go through hard seasons, and there's gonna be worse days than others. Because I know as a teenager, things are always going wrong. But at least like find somebody to talk to about it. You know, don't always immediately go to like the worst case scenario or do the worst thing that's going on in your head. You know, find something positive. Be the most optimistic as you can, even if it's not easy.
Yeah, I love that. And you know, even for parents, there's one thing that I was thinking that, you know, when we speak life, you know, at church and things, we talk about this a lot, just where, you know, we want to speak positivity, speak life. And when we speak what we think is going to happen to our children out loud, it can happen, whether that's life or death. So just think about the words that you're saying out loud. You know, in that book that I was referencing earlier, she interviewed several teenagers or several young adults from when they were teenagers and kind of how their parenting style was. And some of them, basically what they said was that their parents, they would tell them, like, I know that you're just going to go get drunk when you're 15.
Yep. And then they do that.
And then they do that. So don't do that. You know, tell your kid, right. Tell your kid that you trust them to make the smart choices. You know, I know that you're not dumb. You're not going to make dumb choices. Allow them to know that they can make their own choices, but give them a reason to make the right choice.
Exactly.
You know, don't make them feel like they're going to mess up. You know, one thing, whenever I walk around and I'm in Target or wherever, the grocery store, people will come up to me and they're like, oh, you just wait till they're teenagers and it's all going to change. And I look at them and I tell them, no, it's not, in the name of Jesus. It's not going to be awful for me. You know, like, as much as we've been talking, and I didn't always have a wonderful relationship with my parents, but you know what? I still felt the love, and I still followed what they were saying, and it turned out I didn't turn into this terrible child, you know? And so don't put that on me, you know, don't put that on my children. Like, speak the life, speak what you want to happen over your children, not the negative that you don't want to happen. Don't say that about your child. Don't think about what you did, especially for parents who you were the one that made a lot of mistakes, you know, because
Tell them all the negative things from that. 'Cause
right,
kids
yes.
do it because they don't know.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
like, I want to figure it out, and you can tell them stuff, and you can be like, this is how it is, and it is negative, but like
Right.
at least like have that openness
Yes.
about it.
Yeah.
If anything, I wish that more as a teens and like people surrounded by teens, like small groups.
Yeah.
I push so much to have a small group that is open about like homosexuality,
Right.
drugs, all that kind of stuff. That
Yes.
is real stuff, because not all these things that are like bills and all that and the news and all these
Right.
worldly things all the time are on kids' heads.
Yes,
or in their
absolutely.
mind. It's
Yep.
just it's all the things
It's
that
not
present
relevant
now,
for what
and
their life
making the
is.
decisions and things that are going to form them.
Yeah.
So have that openness about
Yeah,
it, and like
that's
tell them
good.
really what it's about. And it's on you if you make it sound like a great thing and all,
Right.
but it is. Those are extremely important conversations
Yeah,
to have.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you, Emma,
Yes.
for coming.
For
I
coming.
really enjoyed it. Yeah, this was good. So thank you guys for watching, and we will see you later.